Fargo. We got with Sunday Night Football over, and a pretty good one over in the Fan tonight with the Cowboys at Seahawks, but it's all Minnesota today with, well, the teams that are still playing in Minnesota pro sports-wise, and, well, even college-wise for that matter, I guess, if you think about it. There is no college football going on in the state of Minnesota right now.
It's weird to think about.
Yeah, it is, because we have some of the smaller colleges in North Dakota going, but we don't have anything right now as far as college football in the state of Minnesota. And I thought about that, because the junior colleges, they shut down, D2, D3. So, there's nothing going on for college football there. And the Big Ten's going to start up in a week, and we'll talk about that in just a little bit. The Twins win last night, and they defeat the Chicago Cubs. So that's going to be an interesting one tonight to decide that 3-game series. Your White Sox, Joel Morgan, have taken over the world now. They are it. They are the talk of the league. They're going to win the division, I think. I mean, it would take.
They're on very good pace to win the division.
Yeah, I mean, just with the way 3 games ahead of the Twins right now, and they'd really have to fall on their face here the last week of the season. And it's hard to believe we're saying that. It's the last week of the season, by the way, ladies and gentlemen. And so they'd really have to fall on their face, and the Twins would have to get red hot in a quick hurry. So I just don't see it. And really having Monday and Thursday off is not really the best thing for the Twins in this scenario, because they had a couple days off before they wrap up against the Reds next weekend. So I think they'll wrap it up and pop the champagne. Now, I've seen a few celebrations. It's not, I mean, I guess we talk about the concerns and everything, and they're kind of throwing out the rules and regulations with that a little bit, right?
Yeah, because there was a ruling that they weren't going to allow it, and then I don't think anyone's...
How'd that work out?
Yeah, and no one's listened. It is a very strange feeling that, it may be because the wild card system has changed, but it's just a strange feeling that we're celebrating teams making the playoffs. We're not celebrating teams winning divisions quite yet.
I agree. It's just a lot of people talked a couple years ago. I think there was 17 when the Twins got the wild card, right?
I believe so.
And people said, "Well, do you think that they should really celebrate getting the wild card? Is that it?" And at the time, I was like, knowing what that team went through in 16, being the franchise worst record. And listen, the Twins, if you've been a longtime Twins fans, there's been some low valleys as far as baseball seasons. The late 90s would be an example of that up until 2001. And then you also look at some of those late 70s, early 80s teams, it was rough, and that would be an understatement. So to say that there have been some pretty poor teams would be an understatement. But here you're sitting with a team that was so bad that year, and then they come back and actually make the postseason. That was one of the better turnarounds that we've seen in baseball. I mean, so I really can't fault them at all for celebrating that one. I think if you're a usual suspect type of person, maybe you're not. I think the White Sox, who haven't been there in 12 years, I do
12
believe.
years, yeah.
So I can maybe get that. I don't think the Twins should celebrate a lot. You just won the division title last year.
Yeah.
Be happy that you're in it. I mean, and you're expected to be there again this year for crying out loud.
I mean, I'm excited the White Sox make the playoffs, obviously, but it's more of just like the merchandise doesn't say division champions. I'm sure they'll make more of it because it's a nice cash grab, but it's so strange that we're having so many teams make the playoffs this year.
Yep, no question.
And I hope we don't keep this going.
Well, take your phone calls on the 237-5948, 1-800-880-5346. You can text message us 35270. This is Couch Potato Radio. We're going to get to some football talk when we come back. Pat Elflein out. Just made it look like they're going to move his position again. On boom, all of a sudden he's out for 3 games. So we'll talk about that. Joe Morgan with us. You'll have news coming up. Derek Hanson. This is Couch Potato Radio, the Sunday morning version on the Mighty 790 KFGO.
We're in the home stretch of the 2020 Twins season, a season that we will all certainly remember. It's been a season that has seen so many great plays.
Not in time! Buxton beat it! Cruz scores! And the Twins win it 4-3!
And a season that has seen some dominant performances.
He got him strike 3 swinging on a slider. Maeda, a no-hitter through 7.
And luckily, a season that is far from over. The best of Twins baseball of 2020 is still to come. Let's go Twins!
News Radio KFGO, I'm Joel Morgan. Authorities have released the name of the boy who died in a Becker County shooting Friday. The Sheriff's Office received a 911 call shortly after 9:30 a.m. from rural Monaga reporting the shooting. Michael Robert Erickson, 17, of Monongahela, was dead when first responders arrived. Deputies in the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension are continuing to investigate the shooting. Williston police are investigating a homicide in the city. Police say officers responded to a call shortly after 3 a.m. yesterday and found a 34-year-old woman dead at the scene. Police say a 29-year-old man was arrested. He has not been formally charged. Police say the death appears to be an act of domestic violence. The remains of a Navy sailor who was killed during Japanese attacks on Pearl Harbor has been buried at a military cemetery in his hometown of Mandan. Navy Fireman Second Class Albert Renner was assigned to the battleship USS West Virginia that was hit by 2 bombs and at least 7 torpedoes from Japanese airplanes on December 7, 1941. The 24-year-old was killed along with 105 other crewmen. Renner's family held a funeral for him Friday in Mandan. The Navy presented an American flag to brother Ed Renner, 99, one of the 15 Renner siblings. He traveled from Milwaukee for the funeral. North Dakota's Farmers Union broke ground Friday on a new youth camp facility that will be built on 19 acres of land at the Jamestown Reservoir. NDFU President Mark Watney says the new facility will allow the organization to expand its camping program and says it will be a great opportunity for Jamestown and eastern North Dakota. In a typical year, the NDFU summer camps have around 1,200 youth attend, but Watney says he expects that number to grow.
It's really a good opportunity for Jamestown. We're going to have some staff working out of here. There'll be some jobs, and we're going to have kids and parents coming through town. It's just a good thing that way. But for Farmers Union, we really are going to grow our camp to 2,000. We're investing in the future of our youth. We're trying to develop those leaders, people that are willing to step up and be part of this great state of North Dakota.
The facility will have a separate dormitory building along with an indoor gymnasium and outdoor recreation. Its target completion date is midsummer of 2021. I'm Joel Morgan, News Radio, KFGO.
Hey, it's Tyler Axness here. Find out what's happening in downtown Fridays at 3:35 on KFGO. Brought to you by the Boiler Room. Listen every week and you could win a $25 gift card to the Boiler Room in downtown Fargo.
Sign up for KFGO News text alerts for the latest breaking news and trending stories in the Red River Valley and beyond by texting news to 35270. KFGO News text alerts are presented by 702 Communications, keeping you connected with high-speed internet. The Fargo-Moorhead area is home for 702 Communications, and that is why KFGO with 702 Communications bring you the KFGO News alerts. Stay connected, stay safe. Sign up today. Just text news to 35270 to receive the latest updates right to your phone. Presented by 702 Communications, keeping you connected.
From planting to harvest and from calving to weaning, you'll find all your local ag news at KFGO.com. Click on the agriculture tab. You'll find the national headlines, but we pride ourselves on providing local ag news. Sponsored by Peterman Seeds and Hawley, offering seeds selected for this region, tailored specifically for your farm.
Twins and the Cubs, one final time, rubber game of this 3-game weekend series, and a good one is brewing on Sunday. Hi, this is Corey Provis, 5 o'clock, Inside Twins, 5:30 pregame, 6:08 first pitch for Rios and Darvish to decide the series. It's all coming up on Sunday on your home for Twins baseball. The mighty 790 KFGO.
Two 237-5948, 1-800-880-5346. You can text us 35270. Derek Hanson with you, Joel Morgan. This is the Sunday morning version of Couch Potato Radio here on the mighty 790 KFGO. Watch a little bit of Louisville and Miami last night. That's about as normal of a setting as because they actually had fans in Kentucky, which was kind of odd because they didn't have fans at the Kentucky Derby, right? I mean, maybe they had a handful of like this big time money people or whatever. But so that was kind of interesting to see. And Miami looks like they have a pretty good young quarterback that's gonna, and their kicker, my heavens, they get this Florida Atlantic kicker to do a graduate transfer. Now he looks like he's going to be a second round pick in the NFL. I mean, the way he was booting that ball last night. But that, for me, who has always enjoyed this Sunday night college football thing, that was a little bit of normalcy that I like. Now, interesting thing with the only team outside of Minnesota I really have been drawn to since I was like in ninth grade, Florida State, they are scheduled to play Miami in 6 days. Their coach tests positive for COVID. I guess his family didn't, and he's asymptomatic, but he's not going to be there. But they're not like quarantining the team or anyone who's around, it looks like. It's just they're kind of treating what I've been kind of saying. I don't understand if you test negative why you still have to quarantine for 14 days like they're doing with some of these schools, but that's a different topic for another day. And I don't have a 4-hour show. But so I find it interesting. Is he just going by this one test? And if no one around him is he just sitting alone? I want to find out more details on this because this is an interesting thing to me that here in the ACC, and the ACC has gotten started earlier than the other ones, them in the Big 12. And we have Baylor and Houston was actually canceled yesterday because I think Houston had a bunch of, or is it Baylor? Baylor had a bunch. And Houston's been trying to get games going, and all their opponents keep on testing positive, so they have to cancel or postpone games. But it's just interesting to see the way that college football is reacting. The SEC might have gotten it right not to start till next week. Kind of get campuses open up, kind of get everything that you need in order. Don't rush things. And really, I'm sure the Big Ten is looking back on this saying, oh, this is what we should have done first.
There's a lot of things the Big Ten's looking back at right now. They are not looking great.
No. Well, it just doesn't it come down to they thought that everyone was going to follow them, right?
That's just it.
That's what it all comes down to is they thought,
expected to be the trendsetter.
Yeah, much the way that the NCAA tournament pretty much trendsetted the whole country by saying that we're going to not have fans.
Have we heard from the Pac yet?
No.
Are they just going to stay quiet?
Here's what I think the deal is with the Pac-12, and it's just my opinion. Because of their climate, they can kind of delay it even longer than late October, right? Because you look at like the Gophers' schedule. I got news for you. That game against Northwestern at TCF Bank Stadium, December. That's, we don't know what type of weather we're going to get outside for that bad boy.
I promise you I'll be at that game.
Well, how you going to go in as a press pass?
I said I can't. I don't because of the weather.
Well, yeah. Plus, you can't get in. That's another problem. They aren't going to have any fans there, which I find interesting for outdoors. Can't you have like a few thousand fans for outdoor settings?
Well, the St. Paul Saints played games with fans.
Yeah,
and that's what 15-20 minute drive.
Yes. I don't know. I give up. So that's what we have for that schedule, and we'll see how that all plays out. But I think that the Pac-12, does the Pac-12 really care about the college football playoff? Because let's face it, this Big Ten move is because a handful of schools, especially one, want to be in the college football playoff.
Yeah. And the Ohio State.
I was going to say, we can narrow it down to one, right? Because I think Michigan realistically knows they weren't going to make it. I don't think any of the other schools – there's only one school that really cares about the college football playoff more than the Rose Bowl. And wouldn't you say, and I'd say it's maybe 1B as Michigan, but Ohio State wants to show they can play with the big boys, Clemson and the SEC. There's no debating that, right? So if this is going to be the attitude and they threaten the league, because how quickly do you think it would take them to go down and call the SEC commissioner and say, let's talk? We're on the same page more with what we want to do football-wise than our brethren here in the Big Ten. How quickly would that happen? I think they would do it. I think the SEC would do it. And everyone could hate them. It would be perfect. They would be everyone's enemy. It would be them in Alabama. You know what I mean? It would be, and if you don't think this is real, Texas and Texas A&M aren't in the same conference anymore. Okay, that would have been unthinkable in the early 90s. And so that's where we sit. And so Ohio State's really flexing their muscle to make sure that they can be a part of the college football playoff if need be. And that's really the long and the short of it. So
yeah, I will say that the way that the college football season has played out this year, it's given a chance, I think, if you're just a college football fan, and I haven't watched as many games as I'd like to. You never watch as many games as you'd like to. But there's a few names now that come draft time, I think I won't be as surprised when they start showing up on teams' radars.
Yeah.
That Gray, that tight end from Carolina was one, or from Duke, probably a guy I probably wouldn't have seen play a whole lot.
Sure.
And now there's a lot of talk about him, so when the draft rolls around, you get that opportunity.
No, that's a very good point. It's going to be just different that way, right? Where you're looking at it, there's going to be such a small window now to look at some of these. And think about some of these schools that are getting notoriety and TV time that normally wouldn't too. We got Louisiana Monroe as one of the marquee games on some of the cable outlets because there's not much else for them to play. Speaking of sports, it's awfully weird to talk about the Stanley Cup playoffs and Stanley Cup finals here at the same time that we're talking about the postseason run for Major League Baseball. And
we should be talking about the start of the NHL season
right
now.
And the NBA, for that matter, opening up training camps. Instead, we're talking about the Jimmy Butlers versus the Celtics. And by the way, as a Minnesota Timberwolves fan, isn't this fun to see Jimmy Butler maybe go to the finals and prove that, well, he was probably right that these kids need to figure it out and work hard. And if it wasn't for salary cap and max contracts and all that, maybe he'd be here and they would be a playoff team again. It's beyond frustrating.
Yeah, it's been such a roller coaster with Jimmy Butler.
Man.
And the Timberwolves are the only Minnesota team that I really root for professionally. And I was in Chicago the day of the trade, and I wore a Timberwolves T-shirt. And I went to a White Sox game in a Timberwolves T-shirt. At Jersey Open with the Timberwolves I got so much hate. I just walk in from the parking lot, Butler sucks and all this, but you loved, as a Timberwolves fan, you loved Butler, and then you hated him.
Yep.
And then you kind of watched out of the corner of your eye when he went to Philly, and now you're just like, man, the Minnesota nice sports culture just needs to go out the window. And you need a guy like that.
Do you think that Tibbs and him, Tom Thibodeau, the former coach, and him talk anymore? I mean, they were pretty tight and they had a good relationship.
I don't think so.
But he got him fired. I mean,
I don't think so.
Right?
I think it's got to be over.
I would think so.
Tibbs was such a disappointment. I thought that was going to be the spark plug that turned the Timberwolves around. I mean, yes, they made the playoffs, but
Tibbs needs a hobbies. No, he's with the Knicks now. Isn't that right? I mean,
there was serious conversation. I don't know if the trigger was pulled.
Heavens. Well, it's interesting there, and of course, to put more. I don't know what. A lot of people in 2000 around here are pulling for the Stars to win the Stanley Cup because of the former North Stars. I wasn't, because it made me sick to my stomach thinking that the city of Dallas is having a ticker tape parade with holding the Stanley Cup, and Minnesota never has.
Former Fighting Sioux goaltender,
yeah, right,
and defenseman and a coach.
Well, Madonna, who is beloved here. I mean, there's just no getting around it. He was an up and coming superstar, and I think if they would have stayed here and won a Stanley Cup, I think Mike Madonna would have been 1B as far as popularity in this state, as far as superstardom behind Puckett. I really do. I mean, you may think I'm crazy on that, but for what he meant and where that was going before Norm Green moved them down to Dallas, he was really becoming a household name, and he was beloved. I mean, he was a good-looking guy.
The hair.
Yeah, I mean, so the girls loved him and the guys loved him because he was fast and could score at will. So, I mean, and to see, I was happy for him. I was happy for Eddie Bell for all that. I mean, there were a lot of former UND guys actually on that team. And so it was nice to see, but boy, there was just a little salt in the wound. And then the Jimmy Butler thing. So I don't know which is worse. I just have a hard time pulling for the former North Star to win another Stanley Cup, but they certainly made some noise. And I'm kind of pulling for the Lightning because I have a whole new respect for the Tampa Bay Lightning after I went down to the Frozen Four a few years ago in 2016 and went to the semifinal game against Denver, which turned out to be the real national championship game. Because the Tampa Bay Lightning season ticket holders that are kind of hanging around there, because they obviously get tickets for hosting, that's a hockey town. You wouldn't think of it, but Tampa is a really good hockey town.
That was a nice hotbed for growth of hockey in the Southland. I remember the joke amongst serious Tampa Bay Lightning fans is that's the forgotten Stanley Cup championship because the next year was the lockout. There was no Stanley.
Right.
So it's like as soon as that finals ended, everyone's going, where were you going to have a season next year? But yeah, they're very serious about their Lightning hockey,
and they have a lot of transplants from northern areas who are fans, and if they dump their old affiliation, whether it be the Islanders or Rangers or Bruins, or I mean you can go with some of the Canadian teams, that just kind of became their team, and they got into that Stanley Cup championship, and it's a good. I've said after going to that's where that should almost be like Omaha is for baseball. That's where the Frozen Four should be. Because most of these northern schools, it's nice to go to Florida. It's nice to go in between sessions, and if you're going to have to go and they kick you out to bring you back in for the night session, to stand outside in 75-degree weather than it is in Philadelphia, and who knows what the weather could be, right?
Right.
In the beginning of April. So I really liked it. I like the venue. I think that Amalie Arena is a really nice arena. So it's something I really wish they would do, and I have a whole new respect for that. So for me, it's go Lightning, and then the NBA, I guess, I don't really care who wins there that much. They're setting up LeBron versus whoever, right? And
right.
So can you imagine the Lakers and Celtics, and it's in a bubble? I mean, that's just crazy to think that could be in a bubble. That you think about all those, going back to the Forum and the Boston Garden, and then now it's going to be in a Disney bubble. It's bizarre to me.
Well, it was weird. I was listening to ESPN sports update on my way in, and they said they're talking about the game tonight. They go 7:00 in the bubble.
Well, how else do you describe it, right?
And then if you're a Valley City State fan, the bubble means a completely different.
Well,
thing.
right, yeah,
but
because
yeah.
so many people know about that worldwide. But yeah, I get what you're saying. Derek Hanson and Joel Morgan with you. This is the Sunday morning version of Couch Potato Radio. Big day today. Again, Vikings at noon with the kickoff. We got the pregame show coming up in about 13 minutes or so. And then tonight it's Sunday Night Baseball with the Minnesota Twins taking on the Cubs. The rubber game of that series. 5 o'clock is the Inside Twins show. 5:30 is the pregame show. And then coming up at 6:08 is the first pitch. Last night, a very entertaining game. They were able to get after it offensively. Friday night, not so much. Hendricks had their number. Holy cow. They could not get anything off him. And so it's Barrios going against Yu Darvish tonight, which would be a pretty good matchup. And so I'm sure ESPN Television happy about that. Text message comes in. Half the season ticket holders for the Lightning are from Canada. Not a big surprise. I think a lot. I think the ones I scout my tickets off of, I think were actually from Massachusetts. They told me, so I'm not surprised by that at all. I ran into actually some people who they were talking about their snowbirds, and half of their friends, they got a lot of them from Canada, whether it be Arizona or Florida or Texas, right? So they're talking about how snowbirds were either trapped in America for the summer, so they were down or they went back home. They got home before the borders closed. Now they don't know if they can get out of here before it's cold. So wherever their RV is or their camp or the place they normally rent or the condo that they maybe own in one of those 3 states I just mentioned, yeah, they may not be able to get back down there. I'm sure a lot of people aren't feeling sorry, but if you like to get out of here for the winter,
yeah, and
Trudeau's not going to let you get across, if we're not letting Canadians in or vice versa, that would be a little miserable because you know how much I like winter, which is little to none. And then you invest all this time to get out of here. I guess that would be a little miserable. For
no one should like winter.
No, but some people do. Some people are waiting for snowmobiling and ice fishing. I see those posts all the time. So we shall see. Vikings Colts today. I don't know what's your take on the NFL. It's hard for me to get excited just for I will watch and listen to every game, right? But it's hard for me to really get into analysis mode this time of year. It's like overkill. I can't listen to many of these TV pregame shows or whatever because you just don't know. How is this going to go? You're not seeing practice. You didn't have any preseason to go by.
The no preseason thing is really absolutely what got me, is because you get these secondary players, guys trying to make a spot, recent draft picks. You get a little bit of an idea of what they're going to look like, but you come in cold, and it's been hard for me too. As I'm not watching any pregame stuff. I'm just
jumping in head first, right?
I'm not. I haven't read any preseason breakdowns of any team. Very little, I should say. I mean, the only fantasy football league I'm in this year is in a pay league, so I was less motivated. Or the routine's not there that comes into a season where you're watching weeks worth of these preseason preview shows and looking at all this stuff.
Well, the only thing that's kind of driving me crazy about today is I want to see Adam Thielen versus Xavier Rhodes a lot, right? Because they're friends. They practiced against each other how many times? And Rhodes looked like he was washed up last year, and I think I'm being kind. I mean, he looked like he was done. Maybe he needed a different system but that is going to be the biggest concern that you have right now if you're a Viking fan, is that Rhodes goes and picks off 2 balls. He was really never known for being a big intercept guy. It was more when he had his best season, which would be the 13-3 regular season. They went to the NFC Championship game before he got hurt against the Eagles. That was his best season. It was like he was taking away one side of the field. He was like glue. They weren't throwing him. People say, well, he doesn't get many interceptions. I'm like, well, they're not throwing it his way. That was by far Rhodes closed that whole thing, right? That was, and he hasn't been very good since. And to be quite frank, he just hasn't been.
Yeah, last year it wasn't great.
He was brutal. He was behind everything.
It seemed like he was a spectator. If you look at every big play that came against the Vikings last year, he was like in every picture, in the background.
Well, and yeah, if I've said that. I used to say that about Andrew Sendejo too. If you're reading his name that much, that's not a good sign because he's chasing, and was the case with Rhodes. And Sendejo's biggest play that he'll probably be remembered for is saving the game against the Broncos, and the fact he got that interception after the Vikings coughed up the ball again. I was at that game. It was 20-0 at halftime, and it would have been 27-0 if it wasn't for Sendejo getting that interception. And, well, the rest is history. They came back and won that game somehow. I'm still not sure how that happened.
The text progression from you at that game was just...
I was in the press box. I couldn't believe what I'm seeing at this point.
It was like, why did I choose this game? Just what's?
Yeah, I mean, it's just, other than the food is good and all that.
We'll have some clips coming for you. I'll email those into you. Make sure we get those on the air.
These are first world problems with COVID. I'm worried about the fajita bar that they used to have at halftime may not be there anymore. So I'm just wondering if it's even covering sports, because I used to like to go in the locker room and get interviews to play back for the the KFGO listening audience, kind of stuff that was exclusive. Like last year, I got Daniil Hunter and whatever, and that's not going to happen. When's the next time that the media is going to be allowed into a clubhouse or a locker room? It's going to be a long time, isn't it? I had this weird bug in my head when I was at spring training saying that. I hope you enjoyed this. I got a lot of cool interviews from spring training. It might be your last one. And it was like this weird voice in my head saying that. And turns out, I don't know how this is going to look. It might be Zoom press conferences for at least a year or so, I would think. We'll have to see. And maybe that's okay.
I start thinking that it expands past to, why do we need to send someone for audio when they could just zoom in? Mm-hmm. Are you going to zoom in people who aren't in the building now? I mean, is that the new?
I think it's about if you want one-on-one, like if you're a beat writer, you just hear like with the Michael Russo, formerly of the Star Tribune, now with the Athletic. His inside scoops and takes, that's going to be tougher now. I just know to build those relationships. A lot of it is off random, your random chats that are kind of off the record, whatever. Yeah. You see that in clubhouses of baseball all the time, because baseball is one of the few sports where you get to go in before the game. Where you can and that's where a lot, Lavelli Neal III from the Star Tribune. What has he done? He's, developed his relationship. There's a trust factor there. So if something happens, guess what? He's going to break his story. So it's going to be harder for guys to kind of get in that mode. And Lavelle's been doing this since the mid-90s. So I just think that's going to be a tough thing. I don't know how that's going to play out. And I'm saying this to the fans, don't feel sorry for me. It's more for you guys, because that's really what they're trying to do, is to convey to the listener, the viewer, the reader, or whatever, what is going on behind the scenes. So it's going to be interesting to see how that all works out for futures covering sports. So anyway, interesting day today. If you're curious, the Vikings pregame show coming up in just a bit. The Packers and Lions. Who do your Bears have today after their
the New York Football Giants?
The Giants. So that should be a win, right? Because I
predicted a 4-0 start for the Bears, which works against my whole trying to get Trubisky out of the starting quarterback role.
Well, the way he finished up last week, that's not going to happen anytime soon.
Well, because
right?
I predicted at first I said it's going to be 4 weeks. That it'll take 4 weeks for him to lose his job, and then I started telling people I don't think he's going to make 4 quarters the way he looked last week.
If the Vikings don't win today and start off 0-2, it's going to get cranky. I can't. That's right. If they lose to a aging Phillip Rivers and can't get to him, much the way they did last year when he was with the Chargers, and they kind of embarrassed him, to be quite frank, made him look as old as he is. It's going to get a little bit owly around here, and I think the talk of Kirk Cousins and going after Zimmer and Spielman and all of it, it's going to get amped up starting 0-2, because I didn't have much hope, as you know, for this season. I didn't feel good about the vibe coming in.
It's the every other year
thing with Zimmer, and I'm just kind of curious how this is going to go. But I hope they can pull off a victory. Again, 12 noon is the kickoff. Joel, thanks so much. Enjoy your Sunday. And then your little, I'm jealous of your little bachelor abode there with all your screens set up with all the different games. And I'm going to be going to my mother's birthday is tomorrow before I forget. So happy birthday to my mother. We're going to go have a little lunch and celebrate that and still have the Vikings game on. It's always fun to do these things. But she likes the Vikings too, so we'll make that work. All right, again, Vikings football, 11 o'clock here. Coming up in just a couple minutes is the pregame show. 12 noon is the kickoff of a short couch potato radio. And I mean short, because who knows how long Viking Fan Line's going to go. And then Inside Twins at 5 o'clock here on the Mighty 790 KFGO. Derek Hanson with you. This is the Sunday morning version. We're here every Sunday now, 10:30 on the Mighty 790 KFGO.